All right, so today is all about spirituality and AI. Now we have a special guest here. We got Miss Kayla Widoshinsky,
Mhm.
also
Hi.
known as Shahar Kovitz.
Yep.
Right.
And her other special guest, the cats.
Right, right
Yes,
there. Just
many, you can collect them all.
Love that.
so for this topic, the reason I wanted to bring this one up because me and Kayla, we tend to go back and forth on this on the idea of AI.
Hmm.
Because it's very prominent, it's everywhere. And as human beings, we're kind of like evolving in a modern culture with this thing. It doesn't seem like it's going anywhere. It seems like it's here to stay. So I wanted to kind of bring up that question of how do we approach this from a spiritual perspective? And Kayla, you have kind of a lovely perspective on it. Because me and Michael, we are a little more friendly to
Hmm.
it. But Kayla,
I have been
you
known
s-
to
you
use it from time to time.
yeah, yeah. Michael has a specific image of me as an old man on his
We'll
phone
put it
because
here.
Yeah.
very disturbing to watch. But Kayla, you have a different perspective on AI. Like, how about you give us a little synopsis about it, and we'll jump straight into the topic.
Oh, okay. Well, I think that it can be a very useful tool, especially for people who don't have access to higher education or even like different access to like medical help. Obviously, everything needs to be taken with a grain of salt, a big
Hmm.
salt lick with AI. I think it's important to, if you do use it, which I don't think there's an issue with using it, but I think when you do, it should be always looking up resources, asking it for sources, double checking all of the facts. Um, for me as an artist, and most artists agree, that using it in to supplement artists' work is a bit tacky.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I'm with
Um,
you.
yeah. So that's, I guess, my short view on it. I don't think it's the epitome of evil, but I definitely think that it can diminish a person's ability to grow
Hmm.
in certain skills. I think it can promote laziness. It can promote a decline in um, what's the phrase that I'm looking for? Basically, thinking for yourself.
Yeah, I got you.
Thinking for
Independent
yourself.
thought, if you will.
Yeah, independent thought, exactly.
Hmm.
Independent thought, it can be a hindrance towards independent thought, towards creativity, towards promoting and growing in different skill sets that you lean on for AI, which
Hmm.
is part of its benefit, but I think also a huge downfall of it if it's leaned on too heavily.
Yeah, and I actually completely agree with what you're talking about, right? Especially as a clinician, a therapist, things like that. Like I've had a couple clients, that do use AI in between sessions, and things like that. And it can get to be a really sticky, kind of situation. Because kind of piggybacking what you were saying, Kayla, like it can be very beneficial maybe for people that don't have immediate access to things. But you're right, it's a giant salt lick, right? Because, there is a potential of creating what is starting to be called computer psychosis, right? Where you become so connected to your AI and so connected to the robot, if you will, right? That it's just self-enforcing, right? And you're not getting the kind of abstract and holistic, kind of idea and input, insights, et cetera, because it's very self-inflating, right? It'll tell
Right.
you whatever idea you're having is like on the right track, even if it could be potentially not on the right track whatsoever, right?
Yeah,
I
exactly.
actually it's interesting. I just had a conversation with one of my colleagues the other day who said that they're doing couples work with a couple, right? And the guy will just come in with ChatGPT stuff and it'll just outline why he's the one that's correct, right? And they can't get anywhere in couples
Oh,
counseling because he'll be like, well, ChatGPT told me that I'm right because this, and is completely closed off to anybody else's opinion, right? And not actually hearing
okay.
his partner because his AI just keeps telling him, "Oh, you're the one that's right. You don't have to. That's so brave of you for, doing this, that, the other thing." It's like, "Oh, AI told me I'm pretty brave. That's awesome, right?" So it's like, yeah, but not to say it can also be a tool, right? How do you use it? Right? When Shahar and I do workshops and I have like tons of different notes and tons of ideas and tons of slides and like I'm so lost, like I can help consolidate, right? Hey, here's a good way of kind of like maybe organizing this in a coherent manner, right? Which helps me in my neurodivergent brain and things like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think you're talking about a very, very I'm on your page when it comes to this, Kayla. I don't really have too many notes, about what you're saying there. I can definitely get behind you.
All right, so let's step up to that point really. So when we're talking about using AI for your everyday practice, like we all agree it saves time, right?
Hmm.
There's a certain time it saves. And Kayla, you kind of had a nice point about that because I say to you, sometimes you tell me like why I use the AI sometimes to write posts or to like write your messages. The way I do it, I like to first write my thoughts, let the thing edit it for me, and then I review and say, okay, I kind of like how it said. I will change a little bit. So I use it mainly as my editor. And like Michael mentioned, there's a lot of information sometimes you have to go through in our business. So it does save a lot of time. And Kayla, you always say the same thing when I say that.
Yeah. So it's what are you saving time to do is the
Mm.
question. Um, so with stuff like this, and that's what touches on the point I made earlier of how AI can be a hindrance to skill building. So, for example, if you use AI to edit your writing, yes, you're saving immediate, like minutes a day to do whatever it is you need to do. Um, but what you're losing in time is the ability to edit. So, in the long term, if you work on that skill and build it up on your own, you could actually get faster at writing because the skill will develop more through doing it.
Hmm.
And then there's the question of what are you saving time to do?
Hmm.
So, are you saving time because you actually don't have enough minutes in the day to get all the things you need to do on your task list done? Or are you saving time so you can spend an extra 10 minutes watching Facebook Reels in bed? No. And so I think that's an important question for people to ask themselves is I think there's a mindset in everybody, including myself, of I don't have enough time.
Mm.
Time is money, time
Hmm.
is a precious resource as
Hmm.
human beings, and it can feel like it's always fleeting. Um, and so that's where having an awareness, which I think is really the main theme when talking about AI, is awareness.
Mm.
Having that awareness of what do you want to spend your time doing? So if you feel like you're drowning in chores and your work and you don't have enough time, but do you like having a clean environment? Maybe it's worth your time to do. Do you want to be able to write more prolifically or faster? Then maybe it's worth your time in the long run to actually sit down. And even though right now it's going to take a little bit of extra time because that skill is still in the process of development, in the long run, you're actually spending your time well by developing that skill and saving yourself the time and the trouble later in life.
Hmm.
Yeah, I love that point. I like
Uh,
that point especially. And Michael, I want to hear your thoughts too, but I like that point especially because you're fundamentally saying that there's beauty sometimes in the struggle.
Mhm.
Like to allow yourself to struggle sometimes to overcome these challenges will help your brain, which is ultimately the point of spirituality in the first place. Is it is a soul refinement. It's a
Mhm.
refinement of the soul, if
Yeah.
depending on which version of spirituality, but it all kind of comes down to the same idea, is it's about refining it so it's ready to for unity, etc. But if we keep making our life so-called easier, on the long run, it doesn't actually make it easier. It makes it harder because you're not thinking as well. You're not thinking about what you're saying, right? There's something about the act of writing and
Mhm.
typing, because most people, and I include myself in it also, I don't always read fully, thoroughly about what I post out there if I use an AI. But if I write it, I'm much more attentive. So there's something about thinking before you're writing, especially if you write with a pen, like
Mhm.
not even typing, writing. There's something about the act of writing that is a commitment to the paper,
Mhm.
right? There's just something also something that we lost from like the keyboard, from the typing. So the struggle is supposed to help our soul develop. But is there a limit? Is there really, like, how do I know when it's good for me to use the AI, and how do I know when it's bad for me? Michael, what do
Mhm.
you think?
Right.
Well, I want to piggyback off of what both of you guys say, because I think, yes, that is a really good point about, like, what are you saving time for? Like, what are the efforts that are going to help you benefit as an individual? It reminds me of my one of my favorite phrases, which is hard work pays off in the end, but procrastination pays off right now, right? So it's like, what are you really trying to develop? What's worth the effort, and to kind of piggyback what you're saying, Shahar, about that whole aspect of writing. That's why I love encouraging people to do journaling. There's something somatic about being able to put pen to paper and be intentional with your thoughts and being intentional with, like what you want to manifest, what you want to express gratitude for. Because I can say all day long, I'm grateful for this, this, and this, right? But to actually put that effort into taking a pen, having that somatic, energetic release to be able to write all that down. There's something powerful about being able to do that. There's something very powerful about physically getting it out of your head and somewhere else so that you don't have to try to contain it all up here.
Well,
So,
right. In
mhm,
calligraphy and swordsmanship back in the day has been like very intertwined, both in the world of kung fu and also in the world of karate, samurais, Japan. Calligraphy has been a development for for that, exactly what you're saying, is putting your thoughts and emotions into a paper, and there's a
mhm,
commitment to it as soon
mhm.
as you put it there. So, so Kayla, what do you think? How do we know and tell the difference between when is it good for me, when is it bad for me?
I love that question because there's not an answer. Um, and this is what I feel like. I was talking to my dad on the phone yesterday, and I was like, I feel like that's what my whole life is right now, is
Hmm.
just listening and learning and knowing, okay, that didn't work for me. Okay, this worked this time, but maybe not next time. It's all about tuning in to yourself and being honest with yourself. I don't think there's any other key to it besides that, which is quite ambiguous. And maybe one of you has a more comforting answer.
Hmm.
Um, but I do think that it's really about listening and observing. Do you feel more energetic after doing something?
Hmm.
For instance, like using AI. If you use AI to complete a task, do you feel like you have a more positive view on the world? Do you feel uplifted? Do you feel energized? Do you feel motivated? Do you feel accomplished?
Mhm.
Or when you use AI, do you feel more confused, stuck? Do you feel numb? Do you just cueing in to what's happening after or as it's happening?
Mhm.
And because it's going to be different for each person, really. Um, and so the ability to listen and acknowledge and move forward without judgment of yourself, most importantly.
Yeah.
Um, as I'm learning so much
Hey, we all are,
this
Kayla.
year.
Don't you worry about
Oh, of course.
that.
Um, that's the beautiful human journey
Mhm.
is all the lessons we get to learn. Um, but yeah, that's my practicality, I guess,
Well, I
is
love that tuning in, right? Like you're saying, like what does it feel like? What are you getting from the end of it, right? Are you feeling more energized? Are you feeling more like, ooh, I like cheated here or something like that? Like, like
right, is
what is
there
the,
guilt?
yeah, is
And
there
then where
guilt?
does the guilt come from? Is the
Mm-hmm.
guilt from someone else, or is it from a sense of missing something? Like,
Mm.
because do you feel like you would feel more holistic if you actually sat and wrote down on a paper, or do you just feel judged by someone else? Because I don't think that is reason enough
Mm-hmm.
to change your behavior.
I like that question. I like that question you're asking yourself, right? Is this coming
Right.
from within or is this coming from external expectations, right?
Yeah.
I think, and I think to, kind of add my own 2 cents to it, because I had a feeling Shahar was probably going to ask me the same question, right? I think that I'm the clarity guy, right? Because I really like what you said, Kayla, about, like really identifying almost like what is this technology or what is this tool doing to affect, the things that you really hold sacred and the things that you're trying to accomplish, right? Are you trying to be a better writer? Are you trying to be a better editor? Are you trying to be a better organized individual? And are you using this as something that can potentially skirt around that entire holistic sense of building as an individual? And so, I think that, I love the in tune. I think that's a huge part of it. I also think a part of it is really clarifying what you want for yourself. Like, who is the ideal you? Are you the writer? Are you the organized person? Are you the editor? Like, what is that, right? And if you're asking about balance, when is it too much, right? When do you start to notice your aspect of reliance falling more on whether or not you got a good Wi-Fi connection to use the AI versus, like how do you feel accomplishing your own individual goals, right? How do you measure becoming the better writer? How do you measure becoming the better organizer, editor, et cetera, et cetera? And just kind of almost tuning into your path as well, right? Like where does that, like how far is that deviating from one side or the other, right? So I think just kind of including like my little piece there as well along with it. I love where you're going with that
So
that kind of tuning in. But go ahead.
so
Go
yeah,
ahead,
so
Shahar.
so I'll say to that, and I think you both kind of you 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 kind of what's the word, like you spotlighted the right issue here, because in the end it's a trade-off. That's what we really need to understand. When we have a certain time in this planet, what happens after we don't know. But what we do know, that's what we do have, this human experience is going to end. We know it changes all the time, and it's going to end at some point. So we do understand that everything using technology of any kind, including AI, there is a trade-off to it. And like Michael, you said, like sometimes you are so used to asking the AI, if someone asks you a question, and like, let's ask the robot, let's see what it says. And then there's no Wi-Fi or you don't have a phone. It's like, oh, I don't even remember what I asked from the AI. I don't remember any of this. So I kind of not used to actually thinking for myself. So there's always a trade-off. So
Hmm.
if I'm taking my time to, instead of writing something on my own, I decide to use the AI for it, I've lost a certain skill that might be good for me to develop. But I can also take that same time and develop into something else. Like for example, for me, using the AI helps me sometimes putting myself out there because I don't like social media. I really don't like it. I Approaching it is very difficult. So anything that makes it easier for me, I love.
Hmm.
Another example for me was when I was when I was training to become a pilot,
Yeah.
is I had a lot of difficulty with using the lingo of talking on the radio.
Mm.
That was a huge difficulty. And there wasn't the easiest way to figure it out. You actually had to listen to like radio calls or something like that. And that was a little difficult for me. especially because I need to talk to someone. So I use the AI, I asked ChatGPT to give me an entire back and forth conversation between ATC, the tower, and my response. And I gave it to Kayla.
Hmm.
Here, read this. You'll be ATC, and I should be the responding pilot. So whatever I'm saying, I want to see if it resonates. So we kept going back and forth, back and forth. There's a lot of creativity to this tool because it is a tool. But we have to understand that when it comes to technology, we are trading off something for the comfort.
Hmm.
Always. You talk about TV, computers, AI, all of those are trading something that we might not have if we didn't have them, right? You
Hmm.
don't know if you remember ever being grounded and you don't have a computer anymore and you don't have a phone anymore and suddenly you're bored.
I
I
gotta go
remember specific,
outside. Lame.
yeah. Well, I remember specifically being in the ashram in the Bahamas, and I used to play a lot of video games. There's no video games in the ashram because it's an ashram in the Bahamas. And I was bored. I was bored out of my mind. But suddenly I'm starting to look outside. I'm looking at the stars. I'm looking at clouds. I'm enjoying yoga. I'm moving outside. I'm creating little stories in my head. Things that I lost by relying on other things for entertainment, for example. So that's kind of how I see AI as well. It's a trade of something else.
Hmm.
So the key to spirituality, and I'll finish here, my long thought, is that you have to understand what you're trading what and for what. That's kind of the key understanding of your own spiritual progression.
Right.
Where am I going? And is this helping me getting there, or this is slowing myself from going there?
Mhm.
Am I connecting more to people, or I'm disconnecting more from people? Am I doing my dharma, or it keeps me away from my dharma?
Yeah, so in that sense, AI is really no different than any other aspect of now what the human experience is. It's just a new word for the same thing that people have always struggled with the spiritual practice is being conscious, being present, having that awareness and taking the time to
Hmm.
question what's right for them and what keeps them on
Hmm.
their path.
Yeah. Yeah, it reminds me of I know this is kind of just random, but one of my friends who's really big into he's a shaman actually. Like one of his big things is always talking about how there's an ongoing war between the earth and the cyborg, right? You know, and how it's very easy for people to get plugged into the cyborg and it pulls them away from the earth, right? And it's just like, you know, in his mind, you know, it's this big, you know, kind of like confrontation that we're all struggling with all the time. But you know, it's just this conversation just brings a smile to my face to remember having that conversation with him because I think you're right, you know, like you know, especially what you said, Kayla, then you know, like another tool that kind of like is a struggle with that, you know, kind of consciousness piece, right? Shahar, in your example, being pulled away from the video games forced you to be more with the earth, right? You know, and kind of more with, you know, the outdoors and the things that are nourishing, things that are enriching, right? We talked about in the past difference between things that are numbing versus things that are relaxing, right? You know, and kind of what do we do to kind of measure how we're feeling in those moments for sure.
But at the same time, the video games for me were developing my storytelling
Hmm.
ability and my story kind of because it was my favorite version of a book. I never because it's an interactive book. That's
Yep.
why I like story heavy games.
Hmm.
So that's also like if you avoid that, if you avoid using the technologies and the tools of the modern age, you're also trading off something.
Hmm.
Like so let me ask you that question before we finish, because 4:30 I gotta split.
Yeah, you're good.
Let me ask you guys this question. What are you trading off by disconnecting from it? Like what are you losing by not using
Ooh.
it?
That's a good
Ah, that's a challenging one.
question. Hmm.
What are we missing by disconnecting from that modern technology completely?
Are you talking about modern technology as a whole or specifically AI?
AI, not Amish. I'm not asking anybody to be Amish, but the later ChatGPT or Gemini, like if you disconnect completely from the AI, what are you losing? Since everything is a trade-off, you are losing something. What is it?
I would say that you are, by completely disconnecting from AI, there's a certain trade-off because here's the thing. as well, right? As we're talking about AI as a potential tool, it also gives you different perspective, right? It might be able to pull up a lot of information or a lot of insights and things along those lines that maybe you didn't necessarily have access to, like in the moment, right? So I think that to completely disconnect from it in the sense of also not having any other outlet, things along those lines. You could potentially be trading off an additional insight to something that maybe you have curiosity about. I don't know if that makes sense or, like if you
It
guys are
does.
following my train of thought. But I would say that that's probably a big trade-off is kind of limiting access to different connections and information and things like that that you might have, right? For example, me as a clinician, right? I've gone through plenty of schooling, plenty of hours of supervision, plenty of this, but as we say, nobody's a master of anything, and we're all still students, right? So by completely separating yourself from something like artificial intelligence, you could potentially be blocking off, something that can pull a lot of data, a lot of empirical evidence and things like that, and offer an insight or something that you didn't necessarily have to begin with. So I think from my angle, that would probably be the best answer I have as to
Well,
what
why,
your
Michael? You
trade-off would
could
be.
you could have gone to the library. Go to the library, spend a week going over the books, order the right book. You could have done that. Why why
I
why is that
could
so
have.
bad?
Yeah, no, I hear you. But even by doing
I
that, that's
totally
very focused.
agree.
Hmm.
Well, I totally agree with Michael, and to your point as well, Shaka, is that you there's still the potential of missing on something because you're not getting the full scope. Even if you go to a library and you go and get a book to get the information you have, you're only getting one point of information.
Yep, that's where I was gonna go.
Whereas,
You got it.
exactly, the AI can pull up multiple sources. And like I said earlier, you should double check those resources.
Hmm.
Um, but you are able to get multiple sources of information in one platform.
Hmm.
So I think that would be the that's really the only loss I can think about
Yeah.
is it's a accumulation of knowledge, which is really the power of AI, and I think its reason for being made in the first place was to be able to pull from many resources to be a reliable and almost even in a sense holistic
Hmm.
perspective of different information if
Oh,
you are navigating it
I know,
Yeah.
consciously.
Yeah,
I know,
exactly.
I know it for myself. Studying has always been something that was very difficult for me, and I grew up without all these things. And it's not like I got really better at them over time. I just got discouraged. I always came with such a good attitude at the beginning of my school year. All the books, all the notebooks, all the little tricks. By the end of the year, I had like an empty back with one notepad and a pencil. Didn't take notes, didn't take anything. I just given up. So it was always difficult for me to school. However, going through 2 years of studying how to fly with aerodynamics, physics, weight and balance, mathematics, all these things, thanks to the AI, it made my studying much easier because it could summarize, disseminate the information. I can cross-reference things. It was much easier for me to structure my study that way. And it get me a good way to organize it, especially through a computer, because it's much easier for me to work organized through a computer than with on pens and paper. I lose them. I lose them. I don't see that being solved in the next 30 years. Maybe if I worked really hard at it, probably actually. But this has been the easiest way for me to actually achieve that result because I leaned more into the technology rather than trying to force myself to struggle. Because sometimes you
Hmm.
force yourself to struggle. It's like, why you should use the big site instead of like using a wheel, like a
Yeah,
wheel
pair
to
of
haul
scissors.
things. Yeah, like maybe don't use the square wheels to move things around. How about you have a circle wheel to move things around? There's something to also efficiency of
Yeah.
your work.
What's
Hmm.
that phrase your dad says about the tools?
Yes, my dad always says like a
I
job
think that's
is
the perfect
always
phrase to end on.
Yeah.
yeah. The to do any job, you need the right tools and it will make it much easier. If you have the wrong tools for the job, it's going to make it 10 times harder. Think of it like
Hmm.
hammering a nail into the wall with a sponge. Good luck. Or use a hammer, and then it's the easiest thing in the world. So understanding
Or
how to
trying to
clean
use a
what,
hammer to wash the dishes.
yes,
Ah, there you go.
exactly.
But if you break the
Exactly.
dish, then you don't have one to wash anymore. So, you know.
Then you try to brush it. You try to brush it with a sword. It's like it not
But then
work
you cut
anymore.
the floor and you don't have a floor to sweep anymore. I keep going
Right.
on it now.
So, all right, to summarize, it's a tool. It's a tool, but don't make it that you become the tool. So don't
Oh,
be a
Mm.
tool.
I thought you were going
Oh,
to say
Use the
fool.
tool.
yeah.
Use the tool, but don't be a tool.
Yeah.
That's how I would say it. Beautiful. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Kayla Witushinsky, Ramapuria, the great
Thank you, Shachar.
star to the skies, and Mr. Michael, the therapist to the stars,
That's
the
me.
LCSW, the
Hmm.
gorgeous shiny head that I always love,
Let's see
and
if I can get the right sun angle, blind you guys both
oh,
before I leave you. There you
oh, the
go.
little angels dancing around your head. So thank you, everyone. Great conversation, and obviously everybody who we share this with. If you have any comments, anything you want to share with your experience about AI and how does it help you, how it hurts you, like something that
Yeah.
I think it's a good conversation for everybody in the modern world to talk about and understand.
Hmm.
Otherwise, stay tuned and we'll find a catchphrase to end this thing, I'm sure.
Same
That's,
bat time, same bat channel.
I like it. That's the way the news
There we go.
goes. All right.
All
Love you
right.
guys.
All right, cut us off, Michael.
Yeah.